Vice President Kamala Harris. She is in Poland to talk about the crisis.
Around the NATO alliance, and in particular, the issue and the importance of defending sovereignty and territorial integrity, in this case of Ukraine. As President Duda has described, we have been witnessing for weeks, and certainly just in the last 24 hours, atrocities of unimaginable proportion. A maternity hospital, a children's hospital, where we have witnessed pregnant women who were there for care, for one reason, being taken out because they required care because of an act of violence, unprovoked, unjustified. I am here in Poland as an expression of the enduring and important relationship between the United States and Poland that again has been long-standing, but in particular on the issue of Ukraine is unified and is clear. We will do everything together in partnership, in solidarity, to support what is necessary at this very moment in terms of the humanitarian and security needs of Ukraine and the Ukrainian people. Today we discussed, Mr. President, many issues that relate to our special bond also, because I will say as a point of personal privilege, we have a substantial Polish-American community in my hometown of Los Angeles, but throughout the United States, who understands the relationship that we have on many levels, including the diplomatic, but also cultural relationships that span generations. And so through all of that, and in the spirit of those relationships and our shared commitments, our shared commitment to the importance of international norms and rules, you and I discussed today many important topics, in particular as it relates to the eastern flank. And we talked specifically about what we care deeply about in terms of our commitment, the United States commitment to Article 5. I've said it many times, I will say it again. The United States commitment to Article 5 is ironclad. The United States is prepared to defend every inch of NATO territory. The United States takes seriously that an attack against one is an attack against all. We are here today to restate that commitment, but also to do what we must do to reinforce our support of Poland and our allies through the EU and NATO alliance. In particular, as it relates to troop deployment, we have recently deployed an additional 4,700 American troops to Poland. That's on top of the years of rotation of about 5,000 American troops in Poland. We are pleased to have announced this week that we have directed 2 Patriot missile defense systems to Poland, and today I can announce that we have delivered those Patriot systems to Poland. We do this as a reminder and as a demonstration of our commitment to the security of our allies and our commitment in particular to Poland at this moment in time. As it relates to the people of Ukraine, they have suffered immensely. When we talk about humanitarian aid, it is because, yes, the assistance is necessary, but what compels us also is the moral outrage that all civilized nations feel when we look at what is happening to innocent men, women, children, grandmothers, grandfathers, who are fleeing everything they've known. Our outrage, which compels not only our security assistance, but our humanitarian assistance, is rooted in the fact that also we support the people of Ukraine who have shown extraordinary courage and skill in their willingness and, yes, ability to fight against Putin's war and Russia's aggression. So today we are also announcing in pursuit of what must happen, which is to provide humanitarian assistance, that we will give another $50 million, the United States will, through the UN's World Food Program, to assist with humanitarian aid. The President and I also talked about the fact that, as he mentioned, Poland has taken in just a very short period of time in excess of 1.5 million refugees in from Ukraine. And that has put an extraordinary burden on Poland and the people of Poland. And so we will continue with the support that we can give you, Mr. President, in terms of the work that you and the people of Poland have been doing to bear this burden, but in a way that really has been with such grace and such generosity. We also are pleased to have shared with the President what our United States Congress has done, which is there is a commitment now of $13.6 billion in humanitarian and security assistance that will be then distributed and shared with Ukraine and the people of this region and Europe. All again understanding that this moment in time requires both a humanitarian response as well as security assistance. And today I'm also pleased to say that we are in ongoing discussions with Poland and our allies about the effectiveness of sanctions thus far and going forward. As we have announced in the United States, we have, through the United States Department of Justice, started a task force to do what is required and necessary and appropriate in terms of investigations as it relates to any criminal activities and behaviors on behalf of institutions and individuals, including oligarchs. We talked, the President and I, about the effectiveness of the sanctions we've seen thus far in terms of the courage and the bold action that has been taken through the NATO alliance to do what is necessary to send a clear signal that there will be, as we promised, severe cost and consequence for Russia's aggression, to the point that we have now seen a free fall of the ruble, to the point that we have now seen that Russia's credit rating has been rated as junk, and what we know to be real economic consequence to Russia because of Putin's war. As you know, the President of the United States also made the decision to do what was necessary in terms of the purchase of Russian oil in the United States. Again, we will continue to focus on this issue, keeping in mind that this is a moment that requires severe and swift consequence for Russia's aggression against Ukraine. And I'll close by saying what we say every day for these last weeks, which is we stand with the people of Ukraine, that we admire their courage, and that we are aligned in our support of their sovereignty and territorial integrity. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mamy czas na pytania dziennikarskie. Proszę o zadanie pytania.
Okay, we want to get now to Joe Khalil, who is on Capitol Hill. And Joe, the Vice President talking about defending the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine, talking about unprovoked and unjustified attacks on behalf of Russia. But the elephant in the room here, and also talking about their enduring relationship between the U.S. and Poland. But the elephant in the room is that these two NATO allies have been in a rift over these fighter jets.
Yeah, there is a bit of a disagreement. It was definitely striking that she did not reference the jets situation at all. I want to start off with some of the news that she did make, which is that there's going to be $50 million more that the U.S. is going to provide for humanitarian assistance that is going to go to Poland. They have by far taken in more refugees from Ukraine than any other country. About 1.5 million Ukrainian refugees so far are in Poland. And she also talked about the $13.6 billion that the House passed last night. A lot of that's going to go to humanitarian aid and will filter into Poland as well. You've also got lots of money there for for Ukrainian weapons. But yeah, what she did not address was the situation with these fighter jets that are now in Poland. In Poland, the prime minister and the president have offered to send all of those jets to a German-American airbase in Germany, and that ultimately would end up in Ukraine. The Pentagon has pushed back on this, basically saying that it would seem as though it would be a provocation to Russia if the U.S. were to move forward on that. There's a lot of calls for the U.S. to do it from Republicans and Democrats here, but she did not reference that at all. It's going to be a tricky diplomatic situation. You have to imagine when she talks to the Polish prime minister and the president later on today and earlier this morning that was brought up, and certainly something that we think the Pentagon is trying to figure out in a way to do that. Rudave, she also talked about the importance of being partners, being NATO allies. She said that the U.S. is absolutely committed to upholding Article 5 of the NATO Charter, which basically says an attack on one country is an attack on all of them. And she said in very clear terms that the U.S. is prepared to defend every inch of NATO territory, which is a clear signal, a strong and clear signal the vice president sent to Russia that if there is any sort of attack on a NATO ally, that the U.S. will respond in kind. So strong words there from the vice president, but you're right, that situation, that diplomatic sort of tension was not mentioned at all in her remarks, at least publicly. I imagine they will be addressed privately.
Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to click on the red subscribe button below so you can get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.